Hi, I'm Lisa Fletcher, and you're in the stream. Today, protests in Bulgaria have forced the government to step down. But will their departure fix the root causes of Bulgaria's broken democracy? Our digital producer, Malika Bilal, is here looking for your live feedback. So during the show, tweet her, use the hashtag AJStream. Malika, online we're seeing what's pretty typical of larger protest movements, which is a lot of complaints that they really lack unity.
Right, and it's those divisions that people are talking about. On Facebook, Radi Radev says the protesters cannot unite around common demands, let alone a political idea or a party. In the meantime, the cost of living and unemployment are rising. For those of you at home, we want to know what you think about this topic as well. So join the conversation by using the hashtag AJStream.
And joining us in studio is Assen Assenov. He is a professor and he writes about Bulgarian politics. He's also a lecturer at American University's School of International Service right here in Washington, D.C. Assen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So, do you have an idea for a future episode of the stream? Share it with us via Facebook. We want to hear about your stories from around the world. So just go to facebook.com/AJStream and drop us a line in the message thread. It's one way you can be in the stream.
Hi, I'm Samaj Prakash. I am a student at Tufts University and a researcher in technology for development, and I'm in the stream.
It's been a winter of protests for Bulgaria. Tens of thousands have taken to the streets over high electricity and heating bills that have put a real strain on people who live in the European Union's poorest nation. And the situation becomes increasingly desperate. 5 people self-immolated in apparent protests, and dozens have been injured in clashes with police. Bulgarians are not only speaking out against economic hardships, but also what some see as a failing democracy, suffering from corruption and ties to organized crime. And last month, after much public pressure, Prime Minister Borisov and his government stepped down. But that hasn't been enough for protesters as they continue to call for greater transparency and political reform. So, what are the next steps for Bulgaria? Here to help us discuss this is Peter Kichashki. He's a protest organizer, activist, and representative of the civil society group Modern Bulgaria. Peter joins us from Sofia. Also with us from Bulgaria is Desislava Petrova. She's a human rights activist and one of many protesting. And we also have Boyan Tabutov. He is the founder of Citizens Initiative for Active Democracy. That is an NGO based in Blagoevgrad, Bulgaria. Boyan, Desislava, Peter, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Desislava, I want to start with you. Give us a sense of the effect that these high energy costs are having on the lives of people in Bulgaria. How much of an average person's monthly income do you think is taken up by these increases?
For some of the people, it's over 100%, because old people, the pension they get, it's even lower than the electricity bill they had this winter. So for some of the people, it's really impossible to cover this expense. And the average person that gets about 500 to 800 level of salary, it's about 20–30% of their income.
Wow, that is huge. Assen, in 1997, Bulgarian protesters toppled the government over high unemployment rates and a bad economy. And now the economic situation is not as bad as it was in 97, but we've seen 5 people self-immolate. What do you think is driving this increased level of desperation?
Indeed, there's a big difference between what was the situation in Bulgaria in 1996 and 1997, when the entire economy was not just with our high unemployment, but exchange rate was plummeting and inflation was running into really high numbers to the degree that it qualifies as hyperinflation. Literally, incomes were drained really quickly, but also the savings were washed out. Today, it's much different situation. Bulgaria is part of EU, one. Bulgaria has stable currency. Bulgaria is a good place to do business. Unfortunately, the economic growth, the catch-up that Bulgaria has done in the several years since it joined the European Union was not strong enough to help all of the segments in the society. The prolonged financial crisis worldwide drained the foreign investments in Bulgaria. Unfortunately, the corruption, which is still not eradicated in Bulgaria, is also a factor. As a result, many social groups and low-income segments of the society are in a situation today when they cannot meet their expenses.
So maybe more of a feeling of hopelessness now, even though the economy is better than it was in '97.
I think it's the fact that the crisis has been prolonged for years now, and that creates a sense of massive frustration among certain segments of the society.
It's that sense of frustration that is being echoed here by Konstantin on Twitter, who says we have to eradicate the injustice and the sense of injustice in Bulgaria, the feeling that the state isn't fair. But Peter, I want you to have a listen to this video comment from Konstantin, who followed up. Have a listen.
The protests in Bulgaria are decreasing because there is no one to vote in parliament, and the next elections will happen in May. People feel that their voices are weak, and this is causing the self-immolations, which reminds us of the poor state in which are Bulgarian media freedom and Bulgarian democracy. I expect a kind of reform in the energy sector, but I don't expect a strong government, which means that the protests may start all over again in the autumn.
So, Peter, he mentioned the self-immolations, and you and your organization have been working on changing the political structure for about a year now. So did you see this coming?
Yeah, actually, we were part of this process for almost a year now. And when we first rang the bell in the 24th of June last year, pretty much no one heard us because we sounded kind of strange. You know, we were saying that the political system has to change and the people have to have the right of being part of an equal part of the political processes. And I think that now we are facing the situation in which we are true, but this is making us very sad because, as you mentioned, 5 people have self-immolated because of the idea that they don't have nothing else to do here. They don't have any other option of influencing the society and making a change in the political perspectives.
Sen, it's unusual to see Bulgarians protesting, certainly. And while some reports, and a lot of actually what we're talking about here, connects it to, the austerity measures and the high cost of electricity, but then there are plenty who argue it goes way beyond this. And this is really a protest and a demonstration about a government that's falling apart, about systemic corruption in the system.
Indeed, the sense of lack of justice all over these years of transitioning to market economy is very strong among Bulgarians. The sense that the rule of law is not prevailing in the society, that the political elite can get it their way, and the sense of injustice is very strong. And one can see them in the media and in the statements the protest organizers are making. This is one of the fundamental statements and message that they're getting across. Political class, political system needs to reform and needs to move further to have much more transparency in the decision-making process, to make sure that the state serves equally well not just businesses and people who are currently in the political system, but everyone else, and making sure that there are mechanisms to hearing of voices of people, making sure that members of the parliament stay intact with people who have elected them, being in constant touch with them, learning about their needs, and making sure that whatever is adopted as a law or perhaps new rules reflect their interest and not just the interest of the business sector or political elite.
Boyan, why do you think so many people in Bulgaria see their political leaders as corrupt?
Well, that's first of all because of the past history, especially in the past 23 years, and besides the whole system being corrupt in terms of no politician ever being sent to court or sent to jail because of malpractices when it comes to misusing their power. That's one reason why common people see politicians as being corrupt. Another one is a great deal of people believe that politicians are not standing up for the common good, for for the ordinary people, but they're standing up for the interest of a certain class, like a certain business interest, and that's all they care about. And that's one of the reasons people weren't happy and went out on the street.
Well, Desislava, as a human rights activist, I want your thoughts on this, because we just heard Professor Assen just say, that we need mechanisms for the people to become part of the government, or to feel like their voices are heard. But what we're hearing is that that's not happening. On Twitter, Yurikov says corruption and politics, mafia ties are so deep, we can't eradicate them without harming the livelihood of half of the country. And we got a Facebook comment from Daniel who says 2 big issues in Bulgaria are organized crime and corruption. The whole political system is rotten to the core. Now, Desislava, as a human rights activist, would you agree with this?
Absolutely agree with both comments. And I would say that all the political parties, all the existing political parties by now are totally discredited. Nobody trusts them. And that's a big problem I see, because now we have not a single bridge between the society and the political elite, so to say. And that's the main problem, because in 2 months we have another elections. We will have again the same parties or some new smaller parties rising, but I don't see the change. I think what's needed now is to have a really strong civil society in Bulgaria, really united civil society, and to find a way to have a dialogue with the institutions.
But how do you start making that civil society from street protests? How do you turn street protests into political parties?
Well, it's really difficult to start a civil society from the street, but at least there are some people that were part of this protest that are from this civil society, sort of, and coming from different organizations. One thing I engaged myself doing is to organize the first roundtable, where we collected about 500 participants to sit down and to discuss what's the possible steps that we can take from now on, and what do we really want from the government.
Well,
yeah.
Well, part of civil society, of course, is having robust journalism. And last month, then Prime Minister Borisov was questioned about leaked documents that revealed his connections to organized crime. And in an informal press conference, he appeared to actually threaten journalists with the country's Secret Service. He was quoted as saying, "I can order the Secret Services to launch similar cases for all of you journalists, all of you, without exception." So, Boyan, to what do you contribute that kind of behavior, that kind of overtly corrupt behavior?
That was a really astonishing case, and a good example of the attitude the past government was abusing power and feeding this sense of powerlessness amongst people, and that things are corrupt. And this seems to be one of the reasons why people didn't believe that things are not going to change.
We have a video comment on this very topic. Have a listen.
We Bulgarians are quite cynical about documents which were leaked because of previous occasions when they were used only for smearing campaigns. Therefore, the trust in Balkan links at the beginning was very low. Mainstream media didn't report on it, so most people didn't even actually hear about this information. They were reported only on online outlets, and there even people were polarized. Some thought it's conspiracy theory, for others it was simply reaffirming their convictions. Therefore, I think that Balkan links had more polarized in the galvanizing effects and didn't bring much new context in the Bulgarian protests.
So as he said in the comment that this just reinforced people's already negative perceptions about government. So people are cynical. How do we combat that?
So I'm glad to see that Bulgarian youth is on the street. I'm glad to see the use of social media to organize people's opinion, because in the past year or two, social media, Facebook in particular, has been used widely to put all of these protests together. It's true, not everyone who signs to come and join the protests in reality joins it, but it is through this kind of organized movement that the people in Bulgaria can put pressure on the political elite to reform itself. I'm afraid, and I'd like to share the opinion of one of our guests, that there is not much time left for protest movements to get organized and have proper representation in the National Assembly, Bulgarian legislature. However, the fact that they are determined to continue to put pressure on the political elite to reform itself, it's a good one, because that's one way we can hopefully eradicate the corruption and hopefully bring the decision-making close to the needs of the people. And yet we need to be careful, because populism may not deliver good things either, because at this moment Bulgaria enjoys economic stability, macroeconomic stability, as well as relative political stability. The way we make changes may have critical impact. We'd like to have smooth and yet decisive transition to more transparent government.
You know, Peter, you're one of the protest organizers. The current government has resigned, but the protests continue. To what end? What is the objective of the protesters? What do they and you want?
I'm pretty sure that this the whole situation here in Bulgaria will continue to be its unstable way, because I'm pretty sure that the people in Bulgaria will continue protesting, because they want to see themselves represented in the political structures. They want to see themselves in the national parliament. So I think that if the political parties recreate themselves in the following elections, they will just fill in the National Assembly with political parties who are already part of the system, who are already part of this model of ruling the country, in which the economy is filled with oligarchies and somehow corruption. So I think that if the political system recreates itself, the people will throw down another government. We'll see that in the autumn, I'm pretty sure of that. So I think that the main reason that the people are on the streets is political representation, and I think that just opening the political system and having the option of civil lists, for example, will make the change that the people are wanting to see at the moment.
So, Boyan, the elections are being held in May. The current political leaders lack credibility. The protesters aren't doing a tremendous job of putting up potential candidates. What do you see happening here? What are your expectations for the election?
Well, the elections will be on the 12th of May, and my expectations is that there will occurred a lot of people that were not actually on the street, the way we call them, the sitting protesters, meaning they're in front of TV being discontented, but they're still gonna vote, and they're going to express their disapproval and discontent during for the coming elections.
Well, see, there's an interesting comment here on Facebook from Paul, who says the reason that the government resigned was to avoid having to change the law that allowed for a crony privatization in the first place. So I want your thoughts on this. Is the resignation just a chance to retreat, go back, in order to make their parties viable for the May elections?
Certainly there is a perception that this was a kind of move to kind of retreat back in order to gain political support down the road. However, I think it's deeper than that. It's in the past several election cycles in Bulgaria, the main characteristic of this cycles was uncertainty. And no one at this moment can predict what will happen in the weeks before the elections. Certainly the former ruling party, that's GERB, was trying to regroup and perhaps reorganize and create bad impression of the only political party that can create order in the society and take the responsibility for governing the country. And yet this perception or expectations may turn out to be wrong, as some of the commentators just suggested. They insist that not just the ruling party, but just everyone changes, and changes in a substantial way, so that we have much greater representation. And if this doesn't happen...
Could that happen by May, realistically, though?
Well, this could happen if indeed parties open up for dialogue. And perhaps this could be the best thing that can happen to the Bulgarian political system. Opening up the parties, cleaning them up. Some of the parties already indicated they like to unload all faces that they suspect that are related with the business sectors and perhaps lobbying for the businesses. I do not see it at the scale that is needed to radically reform the political system and political parties. But we still have weeks to go, close to 2 months to the election day. Things just are going to unfold in the coming weeks.
Desislava, give us your take on that. How hopeful are you that things can start to move in the right direction, at least by May?
I think they already started moving, but I don't believe that they will stop developing until May. I mean, that's just the beginning. And I believe that until the end of this year, we'll have new elections, second elections after May, because the government, we will not be able to form a new government after the elections in May.
Peter, there's been considerable infighting among the protesters. Are they organized enough to create some sort of a unified front that will have a meaningful voice in the May elections?
I think that it is the magic of the civil society that it's not very structured. You know, it's the idea of having different opinions. This is what the civil society should stand for. So I don't think that having different opinions in the society is some case bad or disorganized. But the thing is that I don't see many civil society groups getting organized until the elections. I think that
I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you right there, Peter, because we're out of time. But we're going to continue the conversation. We'll pick up right where we left off in our post show. So to watch that, go to stream.aljazeera.com. But before you do, Malika's got just a few other stories that we're following.
These days, there's an app for almost everything. So it was only a matter of time before the police became the latest service available at your fingertips. Mexico City's Ministry of Public Security is making that possible with its smartphone app, Mi Policia, or My Police. It uses GPS technology to allow citizens to communicate in real time with the city's 76,000 police officers. The app has two functions, as shown in this video from Mexico's El Universal TV. You can report an emergency or crime, or geolocate the closest police official. However, the app also allows users to be tracked by police. Well, that's one detail that has residents wondering if it will be successful. And as the Wired website points out, only 2.8% of people living in Mexico trust the police. Our next lead's from Brazil, where netizens have collected nearly 450,000 signatures to protest against the new leader of the country's Human Rights Commission. The petition calls for the immediate removal of Marco Feliciano, an evangelical preacher accused of making homophobic and racist statements in tweets and public appearances. Following his election earlier this month, Feliciano denied the accusations, but protests have ensued. Activist groups have taken to the streets, and some netizens demand his removal from the position. Our thanks goes to Felipe Gavaza for sharing the story with us on Facebook. Your story suggestion could make our next show, so let us know what news you're following. Leave us a message on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Lisa?
All right, stay with us. The Post Show is next. It's streamed.aljazeera.com. On our next program, they lurk in the corners of society, and only a few are brave enough to speak out. We're going to look at sex trafficking victims in the United States and whether enough is being done to rescue them from the shadows. Until then, we'll see you online. Welcome back. This is the Stream's online post show. We're talking about the social unrest and the protests in Bulgaria. What should be done to fix the root cause of political turmoil in the country? I want to get back to our conversation with Peter Kichashki. He's a protest organizer, and we left out of the main program with Peter. You were saying that protesters don't necessarily have to be 100% unified, that different voices are what create a civil society. But do you feel like this is still a people's movement? I mean, there are plenty of reports that this whole thing has really been hijacked by political opposition and from the extreme right.
Yeah, we can say that we are probably observing such attempts, but I don't see that. I don't believe that the political system are brave enough to try to mount this whole civil society idea. I think that the citizens here in Bulgaria are, despite not being very organized, they are very well informed. So I think that they won't let the political parties getting used by them. So I think that yeah, there may be not a lot of political civil society movements that are organized at the moment. Actually, I don't. Besides our modern Bulgaria, I don't see any much organized civil society movements. But besides that, I think that the citizens here in Bulgaria are well educated and well informed, so they can very fast. They can form very fast different ideas. They can shape different ideas. So I don't believe that saying that the civil society is not ready for any type of political actions is true. I think that the civil society is just stepping on the political stone, and I believe that we are going to see as many political actions by citizens as we can by the end of the year.
Well, you know, we ended our main show asking for expectations. So we tweeted out to our community what they think is going to happen in May. And Bozidar wrote back that Borisov, the former prime minister, will win the elections, but will have to form a coalition with most probably the party of Kuneva, speaking of Meglena Kuneva. And we also have a video comment on those same lines. Boyan, have a listen to this and let me know your thoughts after.
Well, we don't have something really new on the political scene. On 12th of May, at the parliamentary elections, we will have a rivalry between two ex-prime ministers, Sergei Stanishev and Boyko Borisov, both already unloved from the nation. The new and interesting of these elections is the candidacy of a lady, Meglena Kuneva. Her new party, Bulgaria of the Citizens, probably will become the third at the new parliament, and every new face gives us a new hope.
So Boyan, is that what's needed, new faces?
New faces, of course, are needed because they'll bring fresh and new ideas. Whether a new coalition government will be formed between Meglena Kuneva and Boyko Borisov is a completely another matter, and it's too early to state whether that's going to be the case. I just hope, contrary to what the other participants mentioned, that there are not going to be second elections till the end of the year, just for the sake of the country, because currently the whole government has stopped operating, and that's not helping out getting out of the country from the economic and financial crisis. So I hope as soon as possible we'll get on track and start solving the deep-cutting problems when it comes to the monopoly, when it comes to the social situation, when it comes to the income of the people. These are all priorities that needs to be solved as soon as possible, and postponing it for another year is just going to make matters worse, not better.
Assen, do you think the public's grievances are solely with the Bulgarian government? What about the EU? I mean, there's an argument that Bulgaria joined the EU prematurely.
Well, there is an argument indeed that Bulgaria should have been done much better job in reforming its system before joining the EU. And of course one can say, and that's my position as well, that EU can be used as a leverage to accelerate the changes. And European Union by itself has been a mess in many ways, and it's not out of the woods as of yet. So certainly Bulgarians have expected much more from the European Union in terms of help, and in terms of help in particular to support the job creation, but also helping through the income policy to people that are in need. Indeed, there is a relatively big segment, perhaps the biggest segments within the European Union that needs income support so that people can meet their payments for electricity, for food, among other things. And I think the European Union itself needs to rethink its orientation in terms of how those resources are spent. And currently there are some voices to direct more funds towards, for example, job creation for disadvantaged groups, including youth unemployment. Those are just few of the things that Bulgaria can do, and European Union can do. But also, Bulgaria itself needs to make sure that capacity to absorb funds from the European Union is there. It needs to educate people how to apply for money, for structural adjustments. It needs to involve much more people and make this process much more transparent, because at this moment the sense that lots of bureaucratic layers exist is quite strong. And in essence, the second feeling is that many of this money will go to companies related to political elite, and that is something that needs to be fixed once and for all.
Peter, the protests seem quite nationalistic. I see a lot of Bulgarian flags out there in the video. What's your sense on the ground? Do you feel a sense of anger toward the EU among protesters?
I think that this is not the main issue. Yeah, there are some people who are feeling themselves a bit angry towards the EU, but I don't think that this is the main part. You know, at this protest, you can see the whole society broaden up, and stepping on that, you can say easily that you can see a lot of nationalists. You can say a lot of, for example, mothers with small children on this protest. So I don't think that there is a certain group that has a majority of let's say of influence over the protests. But I think that the society at the moment is not needing any type of new faces. Actually, when Borisov entered the parliament, he introduced more than 100 new faces to the political stage, and they've done nothing good actually. So I don't think that the new faces is the way that we're going to change. I think that the more option of we having of influencing the political process, this is the keystone. Everything else is just saying, and I don't believe that even, let's say, previous people have mentioned the party of Meglena Kuneva. I don't see that she was, after all, she was a Euro Commissioner. I don't believe that she's going to bring the change, and I don't think that any of the faces at the moment are going to bring that change. So the only keystone that we have to unite to is the idea of citizen control the politicians, and the citizen can try to be part of the political system.
Well, Desislava, we have a video comment here looking at things a little bit more positively. Have a listen.
Bulgarian protesters wanted to change the system with a revolution. But I don't think we can have a revolution. We already have democracy and market economy. Here they're still young and have problems. Politicians are just representatives of society. And as society, we must learn not to be quiet about small things that matter, to be inquisitive and demand the right actions from the officials. And we must point out any instance of cheating or trying to circumvent the rules by anyone daily. I think that's the way to drive steady evolution to our democracy.
So Desislava, he says, we already have a democracy, we just need to fix it.
Yeah, we really need to fix it, because the democracy we had so far, it's not the democracy I believe in. And one of everyone's mistake was that by now we've been quite silent and unorganized, and we've been always waiting for our Messiah, for our Savior, for our new face that would just come and change the whole country and make something good for us. And I believe that one of the reasons people are out on the streets now is that they realized it's not something possible, and they should be part of the process. They should take part in it. And it's the same, like Peter said, it's not the new faces that's gonna change the situation and that's gonna change the system. It's also the mechanisms that we need. And yeah, for sure, one of the things is more transparency, because the levels of corruption are really the highest in the European Union. And that's something that really brings back our country. And the other problem is that there is no really a dialogue between the institutions and the citizens.
All right. Desislava Petrova, Assen Assenov, Peter Kichashki, and Boyan Tabutov, thank you so much for joining us today. On our next show, victims of sex trafficking. We're going to examine what's being done to end human trafficking in the United States. So send us your thoughts and your questions on that. And until then, we'll see you online.